What unsolved mystery gives you the creepies? Part 2. Please like and subscribe to support this channel. Back in 1998 I lived in a farm. I was 10 yo. My parents and I were building our house into the city, so on weekends we would go and paint and fix the place. On the way back we had to go to the farm and we passed through an area that is open. No tree, nothing else but a windmill pulling water. Out of the blue a massive white light blinds everyone in my family. We were in a Ford F-100 single-cabin truck, the four of us facing the windshield. The burst of light was followed by a high-pitched noise. My father had to stop and pull over. It was the middle of the night in a rural open area, nothing around us. We heard some noises above the truck and my father said, "Fuck no," and hit the gas. The next weekend on our way back, we slash a tire in the exact same spot the white light blinded us and the sound. I have never seen my father scared in his life. We started to hear the high-pitched sound. My father got off and changed the tire with Formula 1, NASCAR speed and hit the gas ASAP. Mount brother and I were just terrified as my mother was also out holding the light for him. We were scared AF. On top of that, the same night our TV in the farm only managed to get a few channels. We saw real-life footage of a family being kidnapped by aliens during Thanksgiving and we freaked out. Up to this day my family has no clue what was that sound nor the light, but boy we remember the fear. I'm interested in every disappearance of a child. So of course Madeleine McCann is one of my favorite unsolved cases. I also have a similar story in my hometown, 10K residence, Eastern Europe. In 1994 14-year-old girl left her house at around 2 p.m. Went to see her boyfriend in the hospital and she reached this destination. No one knows what happened, no one wants to talk about it after 20 years. The guy who was her boyfriend at that time is now in. A few years ago, was woken up from a dead sleep in the middle of the night by this bizarre music. It sounded like a clown singing, "Happy, happy, everybody's happy." I thought it was just a dream until I looked over at my wife, wide-eyed and awake. "Did you hear her that?" she asked. I grabbed a baseball bat and searched all over Rhetoric House. Our TV was off, computer unplugged, and phones on silent. We never discovered where the music came from. Not so much creeps me out as makes me sad, but there is a listing on the Doe Network, an organization dedicated to identifying unidentified bodies, for an older woman found dead in a section of a cemetery where children are buried. She had a tiny Christmas tree beside her and was listening to a Jeff Foxworthy tape. In her pocket was money with a note reading, "For the coroner." I always wonder if that woman's child or grandchild was buried there, and she decided to go and be with them forever. It has since been solved, mostly, but the bloop noise always gave me the creepies. Even the mental image of a sea creature so massive that it can be heard from sonar stations hundreds to thousands of miles apart freaks me out deep within. Imagine being underwater, where you have limited visibility, and a creature approaches you that is so massive you can't see its entirety. You look left, endless creature. You look right, up, and down to the same thing. Some freakish creature that engulfs your entire field of vision. Yikes. Delphi murders without a doubt. We aren't any closer to arresting the murderer now than we were back in February when it happened. I get freaked out every time I'm on a hiking trail and come across young teenagers out by themselves knowing that the killer is still out there somewhere. As a parent myself, I don't understand how another parent can let their children go out traipsing through the woods by themselves when two little girls were killed less than 45 minutes away just weeks before. The mystery of the sonic weapon in Cuba. From the linked article in The Guardian. Greater than the blaring, grinding noise jolted the American diplomat from his bed in a Havana hotel. He moved just a few feet, and there was silence. He climbed back into bed. Inexplicably, the agonizing sound hit him again. It was as if he'd walked through some invisible wall cutting straight through his room. Greater than soon came the hearing loss and the speech problems, symptoms both similar and altogether different from others among at least 21 U.S. victims in an astonishing international mystery still unfolding in Cuba. The top U.S. diplomat has called them health attacks. Basically, some sort of sonic weapon was used either to attack or spy on American and later Canadian diplomats in Cuba. No party was officially identified as the culprit yet. Unsolved mysteries. One of the featured cases was the Blind River rest stop murders. The only part one added was some of the dialogue, since it's almost impossible to find an account of the thing. The setting is Canada, beginning of summer 1991. Gord and Jackie McAllister parked their RV at the Blind River Rest Stop, just outside of Blind River, Ontario, Canada. They're the only vehicle there. Around 1 a.m., the 62-year-old Gord McAllister and his wife, Jackie, are woken up in the middle of the night. The sound of banging on the outside door. They're the only RV parked at the rest stop on the side of a forested highway. Desolate. Isolated. In the middle of fucking nowhere. Police, open up. The voice yells, banging on the trailer door relentlessly. You need to move your trailer immediately. The voice barked. The two look to each other and cautiously agree to open the door, to see what is happening. Something unsettling fell upon the RV cabin. Why was there no other cars in the parking area? The pounding only grows louder as the 59-year-old Jackie McAllister inches closer to the door. She unlocks the latch and opens the door for the officer. Only it wasn't. The man barged in, pushing Jackie out of the way, a huge, lumbering figure. His hair was long and bleached to a platinum blonde, almost white. A sinister grin appeared on his face and his eyes burned right into Gord and Jackie's, staring with evil intent. He pointed the shotgun in their direction, on his back a large hunting rifle. Empty out your wallets and personal belongings. Give me all your cash. I'm gonna rob ya, and then I'm gonna kill ya. He locked eyes on Jackie, the shotgun pointed at them as she screamed frantically. His mouth sharpened to a wide grin as his eyes never blinked. Jackie was the first to move. They complied. She reached into her purse. All right, Gord said, just don't hurt us. As Jackie reached into her purse looking for cash, the man with no hesitation clenched his finger on the trigger, unleashing a shotgun spread right into Mrs. McAllister. Her body tore apart, soaking the RV interior with blood. Her husband recoiled in horror. The man's grin widened, unflinching from the mayhem he created as he aimed for Gord. It was clear he didn't care about the valuables. It was clear he wanted someone to die tonight. The shotgun panned across the room to Gord. McAllister leapt for the window. The madman pulled the trigger again as Gord broke through the window. Gord hit the ground in the confusion, adrenaline pumping through his body. What the fuck had happened? Gord scrambled, pulling himself underneath the RV. The man stepped out the door, his boots racing down the metal stairs to the ground. He quickly walked over to the broken window and looked around, pointing the shotgun around as he tried to see where his target had run off to. There under the RV, Gord kept as silent as he could. But he realized something as the burning sensation caught him while he laid there. It was a pain like no other as it only amplified. And in that instant, Gord knew he was hit. The blood seeping from his body into the ground. And before him, just outside, the man, standing. His boots no more than 2 feet from Gord's face. He knew he couldn't run, he wouldn't make it. He knew he couldn't fight back, not now in his condition. He knew he had to be as quiet as he could or else he'd be dead. His mind raced thinking about Jackie. Everything was happening so fast. The killer slowly turned and faced the RV, looking for a sign. Something had caught his attention. Gord recoiled, his eyes widening as he saw the man turn to face his direction. Was this it? Suddenly a bright light shone on the RV. Gord peered as another vehicle rolled up to the Blind River rest stop. The killer turned around slowly as the brakes made a distinctive squeal, while the car transmission turned to park with a heavy thud. Out stepped a young man, 29-year-old Brian Major. Everything going all right there? Brian asked to the RV and the tall man with the long blonde, stringy hair. The man said nothing and turned to Brian, his eyes staring down at the interloper. Brian couldn't quite see what the man was holding. Are you Owry? Brian asked, before realizing the man was walking towards him. The man held his gaze on Brian as his steps picked up speed. Brian stepped backwards, the threat of immediate danger overcoming him. The man picked up the pace, walking with clear intent towards Brian Major. From under the motor home, Gord watches the scene play out. Brian gets in his car, his fingers fiddling for the keys. He looks away from the approaching man as he makes sure the keys line up in the keyhole. The key lined in with the tumblers. Brian twisted it as fast as he could, turning over the engine and starting his car. Instinctively, his hand darted to the gear shift, rapid shifting it down into drive. His foot slammed onto the gas pedal. He was getting the fuck out of there. And as his foot tapped the gas, the shotgun fired once more. The man had caught up. He sent one blast straight through the glass with his 20-gauge shotgun, killing Brian instantly. Gord's hope dropped immediately as he heard the horn play. Brian slumping into it. The car not even leaving the parking lot. The horn was an insurmountable force, a constant. Gord closed his eyes as the killer inspected Bryant's car. Gord's heart was racing. He knew. It was over. He knew he was next. His eyes slowly opened, giving into the fear. He couldn't see the killer. And like that he was once again alone. Gord hoped deep down that the man was gone. That he'd keep running. Carefully he pulled himself from under the RV. He came to his feet and raced back into the motorhome. Gordy quickly started the RV and drove out of the Blind River rest area as fast as he could. He just wanted to put as much distance between him and the killer as he could. Gordy drove it out to the highway and flagged a trucker for help. Aside from Gord, there was another witness. Shortly after 1 a.m., another car began approaching the Blind River rest stop area. It drove on the highway, as a man noticed a large blue van emerge from the empty Blind River rest stop. It was off in a hurry, the man noted as he drove. And suddenly, the blue van swerved and began heading straight for his car, attempting a head-on collision. The man managed to swerve quickly, dodging the blue van and getting out of the way. He regained control and sped away from the blue van as the van sped off towards Sudbury, Ontario, escaping into the black. The case has never been solved. In February 2012, Gord McAllister passed away. TLDR. An old married couple parked their RV at a rest stop at night. They're awoken by a tall dude with long blonde, white hair claiming to be a cop. He kills one of them and a passerby who happens upon the scene in some No Country for Old Men style horror before fleeing into the night. In the city I live in, around mid-2008, there was a murder case that happened involved. A 14-year-old girl was murdered, along with her house help. Various theories emerged, including one very prominent one where her own parents committed the crime. They were even implicated in it. They were only recently given bail and to this day nobody knows who killed her. Her name was Arushi Talwar. It was something that really shook the country. The disappearance of 14-year-old Laureen Ran is creepy AF. It starts when Laureen's mother Judith returns home from an event and discovers Laureen is gone. And the details get stranger and stranger. When Judith arrives home, her apartment building is in total darkness because the light bulbs on all 3 floors have been unscrewed later that year, 1980. Judith discovers 3 unexplained calls on her phone bill made from California. One of the calls is for a teen sexual assistance hotline. Run by a California physician. The physician first denies all knowledge of Laureen. Later he changes his story and admits that his wife is sometimes visited by teen runaways, and that this might have included Laureen. He also suggests that a colleague of his wife's, porn star Annie Sprinkle, might know Laureen. Police briefly investigate Sprinkle, but can't find a connection. The other 2 calls went to a Santa Monica hotel allegedly used by a child pornographer named Dr. Z. Judith receives weird calls in the middle of the night, with silence on the other end, for years until she changes her number and moves. All of this info comes from Charlie Project and sounds like a textbook case of trafficking. Several women have gone missing in the Albany, New York area where I live. The remains of a few of them have been found, but not the person who took them. Karen Wilson, for example, has been missing since 1985. No trace of her has been found. It's suspected that there's a serial killer operating around here, and no one has a clue who it is. The police presence in some spots is so thin, they may never get the guy. Here's one. And it's a personal one too. There are strange noises in the sky. They happen all across the world. At first I was a little weirded out because when I ran downstairs and outside, they always stopped, and nobody else nearby heard them. To me, they sound a bit like a massive sky whale or something. They sound like whale sounds. Some people call it a loud groaning or scraping. Governments have tried to explain them in a variety of ways, but those have all been proved to be lies. It wasn't an assumption, it was a statement. In fact, while scientists have been able to disprove what governments have claimed, they haven't been able to find out what's causing them. There's videos all across the internet with recordings of it. It's not construction, because people have heard it out in the middle of nowhere. Ice shelves scraping together wouldn't make sense because they've heard it on the equator. Earthquake-like stuff is also a no, because I live in an area where earthquakes are impossible and I've heard it. Here's a YouTube link with the clearest I've found. Go listen to it. At about 3:40 is where you want to start. MTOQVGTU. Maybe there is a giant sky whale. Who knows? What was investigative journalist Michael Hastings working on before his car suddenly decided to kill him via remote hacking? He had already taken down General McChrystal and said he was about to go underground because he found out something big. He even reported to his neighbor that he thought someone was tampering with his car. People believe he was working on exposing something about the CIA, and after the Vault 7 leaks, we found out the CIA definitely has and uses technology to remotely hack and control cars. So what did Hastings find out that got him killed? The one where a guy was out in the front yard in view of his family. He walked around to the other side of his car and just vanished. There was nowhere he could have gone without someone seeing him, and his family could hear him calling for help from what seemed to be underground. His voice got fainter and fainter, and then disappeared. I always wondered if there was some sort of hidden sinkhole or something. My friend had his little brother Garrett go missing in the high Uintas. He was out there with his dad and other scouts and got his socks wet. He was told by his dad to go get fresh socks on at the camp, which was about 150 yards away from where they were fishing. He went and never came back. I remember we had tons of searches for him and never found much of anything. The only thing that ever turned up was one of his socks a few months later.